Well, Boris Johnson is expected to admit today that he made mistakes during the pandemic. He's appearing before the COVID inquiry.
Well, the former Prime Minister will argue his government got the big decisions right. He always says that, doesn't he? We got the big decisions right. With the Times claiming he will also say he helped save tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives by preventing the NHS from being overwhelmed.
Well, let's speak to the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. He'll be trying to convince us then on those big decisions, but there will be serious questions, not least about where he was in those 10 days before lockdown was called, and about some of the comments he made about letting the bodies pile up.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there'll be all sorts of questions being fired at him. I mean, thus far, he's come in for quite a lot of criticism from a lot of the other witnesses to the inquiry, not least Dominic Cummings. Obviously, his former top advisor, has been very critical of Boris Johnson's handling of the early days of the pandemic. The scientists as well, Chris Whitty, Patrick Vallance, they have been pretty critical of his understanding of the severity of the pandemic in those early days. So yeah, he's going to have to come out fighting to try to put across his side of the argument, because there's no doubt that his already pretty damaged reputation has come in for a bit of a battering so far in the inquiry.
It should be interesting, given, you know, the barrister will go through line by line painstakingly in a way that will really sort of turn the screw, if you like, on the former Prime Minister. You know, it's very difficult to pin him down sometimes. I think that's fair to say. It's one of his notorious traits. But this barrister will absolutely be, you know, putting him on the spot over the next couple of days.
Absolutely. He's going to have to be right across the detail of his evidence, which is not something that he's noted for. He's been holed up with his lawyers for the last few weeks, going over in painstaking detail exactly what happened at that time. Now, we know that the initial meetings of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee were chaired by Matt Hancock rather than Boris Johnson. I remember at the time there was an awful lot of questions as to why Boris Johnson didn't choose to chair those meetings himself. I'm sure he'll be asked exactly to explain his thought process there. There have been allegations that he was more interested in finishing a biography of William Shakespeare that he was writing, which I think he will deny today. He's also been accused of trying to play down the severity of the pandemic, suggesting it would all turn out okay. It wouldn't be as bad as swine flu. I'm sure he will hit back quite hard on that. But yeah, I think he's going to have his work cut out to try and convince people that he was taking it as seriously as he could have done. And as you say, though, he will apologise, though, for the mistakes which were made on his watch.
How much sympathy will he glean, Kevin, by this claim he repeats over and over ad infinitum? I got the big decisions right.
Well, the thing about Boris Johnson is, you know, no one is really lukewarm on him. People either think he's great or think he's awful. So I think it's going to be difficult for him to change people's minds. I mean, there's no doubt that the vaccine programme was a tick in the Boris Johnson box. I think, you know, he was certainly very early to the party on that one. Pardon the pun on parties, but you know, the UK's vaccine programme was very good, and I think there's no question that did save an awful lot of lives. However, that was quite far into the pandemic. I think this particular inquiry at the moment is going to be focusing on those early decisions. What did he do when the story first came out of China about this new virus, and what measures did he take, as I say, February, March time in 2020 to get the UK prepared for what was to come. And of course, there's a story in the Times this morning that WhatsApp messages, crucial WhatsApp messages from that period that were on his phone, have been unable to be retrieved. So unfortunately, that particular line of evidence won't be revealed to the inquiry.
OK, Kevin, appreciate it. Thank you. We'll speak again later in the programme, Kevin, but for the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.